2007, in my opinion, came out with some of the best films of the century, such as No Country for Old Men, There Will Be Blood, and the one most people slept on, the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Directed by Andrew Dominik, who had previously directed Chopper and later Killing Them Softly, the assassination of Jesse James tells the story of Jesse James, the famous outlaw played by Brad Pitt, and his final days before his assassination by Robert Ford, characterised by Casey Affleck. Interestingly enough, the story is told from Ford's perspective, with the added narration of Hugh Ross. For as we discover in the film, he'd idolised the man before shooting him in the back of the head. What this film really sets out to do is to deconstruct, or in another way, demythologise the cowboy legend that is Jesse James, and to explain any additional motives from him and Robert Ford. Essentially, this film is one big character study on both James and Ford. After staging a last great train robbery with a new but temporary gang that included Charlie Ford, played by Sam Rockwell, great actor, and his younger 19-year-old brother Robert, James becomes paranoid about possible traitors in the gang, which there were, and gets quite sick, both mentally and physically. Since Robert Ford is a bit of a naive fanboy towards him and desired his friendship, Jesse takes Robert in with his family, bonding with him, which then, over time, Ford slowly sees his childhood hero for who he really is, and worries that he may kill him and his brother, in fear of Jesse finding out that they have to turn him in or kill him. From here, instead of the usual John Wayne Robin Hood larger-than-life hero where robbing trains was to benefit the poor, Jesse is shown to be quick to anger, paranoid, viciously intimidating, melancholy or depressed, a murderer, and all around a bit of a dickhead.
My God, what just happened?
But not without sympathy in the end. In contrast to Robert Ford, who was seen as small, bit of a whinger.
Come snooping around here, you better strap on a shooting iron! Ooh, you can see how scared I am. You two would, huh? You cross me again, I'll put a bullet through your head!
A crack shot, and rather Weasley, but still sympathetic. Their relationship is the entire basis of the film, and it is interesting to see these drastically different personalities play off each other. How the film's themes and message are presented is through explicit and implicit subtext. Subtext is, as defined by film scholar B.K. Dick, a complex structure beneath a narrative consisting of the various association the narrative evokes. In other words, there is a surface meaning and a deeper meaning. The surface meaning, or explicit subtext, is usually the plot or main subject of a story conveyed by the characters, the author, the filmmaker, etc., while the deeper meaning or implicit subtext is finding meaning behind the story, intentional or not, that is constantly analysed and debated about. Most of Jesse James is rather explicit in its subtext of deconstructing the characters of Jesse James and Robert Ford, but personally I think there is a lot of implicit subtext to be found, or as a better way of saying this, the more implicit ways of showing the explicit. A way of analysing any subtext is through visual means, i.e. the cinematography. The director of photography, Roger Deakins, a massive legend by the way, for example, used old wide-angle lenses for certain shots to give the image a vintage vignette with some colour aberration, evoking the aesthetic of photographs in the 1800s, but also the feel of the tone for which the director is trying to put forth, which can be explicit subtext. The look of the film kind of goes against standard Western concepts with its cinematography. There is a lot of contrast, the use of low light, low key lighting in the train robbery scene is phenomenal. Everything is well framed and exceptionally lit, as opposed to the higher contrast, brightly lit scenes of westerns made in the 1960s, for example. Personally, everything that Deakins has filmed and continues to film is quite beautiful. A certain scene that has James in a bathtub in his living room and Ford looking at him in a rather envious way could be interpreted as both explicit and implicit subtext, in that while there was admiration and impersonation,
I can't figure it out. Do you want to be like me? Or you want to be me?
there could have been some infatuation. It might be a stretch, but it is interesting that with a single concept it can change the film in a narrative sense and possibly in an emotional one.
Don't that picture look dusty?
Another scene in which the analysis may be obvious is when Jesse is killed. It is a slow, dramatic scene, with the music coming in at around when Jesse is dusting the picture, with it cutting out as soon as he is shot and falls. Quite unimpressive for a death scene, which heightens the realism and dramatic elements. What makes this scene is that, to my understanding, Jesse willingly lets Bob kill him. We see throughout the film that he's losing his grip and has bouts of depression and a bit of insanity, so there is all that build-up of emotion of Jesse's sadness and Robert's hesitation, mixed in with his depression for not wanting for him and Charlie to be killed by Jesse, but still take him out for the police. And if you take into account other possible factors in Jesse and Robert's relationship, it just makes it even more heartbreaking to watch. Overall, The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford is a great film with brilliant performances, beautiful cinematography, all hail Roger Deakins, and terrific score. It is an underrated character study of one of the more infamous tales in the American West, and I can't recommend it enough.